Here's the big difference. Instead of focusing on willpower and discipline and these things that are limited and can vary from day to day because those things are affected by your day, by your mood, by your environment and the situations and the chaos and whatever. Those things fluctuate based on your experience. Instead of focusing on that, just trying harder, I focus on becoming that next version of you. Welcome to Breakthrough Mode, the podcast where we intentionally get into the driver's seat of our lives, shift out of monotony and mediocrity, and step on the gas towards becoming the person we were always meant to become. Hello and welcome to episode 231 on the Breakthrough Mode podcast. I am your host, Megan Bauer. Thank you so much for joining me today and pushing play on today's episode. About a week or so ago, I was having a conversation with a friend about the habits that teachers can develop to be better teachers. And at first, our discussion was focused in on tactile things that the teachers could do, on checklist things, if you will, to-do list things, if you will. Yes, I did this. Yes, I did this. Very clear things that these teachers could install as habits that would improve how they taught, improve their, ability to teach, and just improve their effectiveness, I guess, all the way around. But by the end of the conversation, it was really interesting to me how this took a turn, because I asked her, I was like, so a teacher who does all of these things, yet still isn't like that impactful, incredible, teacher that these students are going to remember for years and years, what then? And my friend was like, well, it boils down to like who they want to be, what kind of a teacher they want to be, and then doing the things that would help them be that teacher. The teacher that not only knows their name, but knows their favorite candy bar and what extracurriculars they're involved in. The teacher that shows up at those extracurriculars. The teacher that is involved in more than just the academics of the student's life, to make that whole child impact, right? It's not that I just care about your math and your reading and your writing. It's that I care about you and helping the kids feel that difference. And when you are that kind of a teacher, of course, the kids won't be able to wait to come back and visit. They'll be so excited to come back after summer break to say hi and I've missed you, and they'll be excited to see them in the halls and all of this, right? So we started with these tactile to-do list type things that teachers could do. And by the end of it, it was, okay, yes, you could do all of these things, but who are they being? And what are the things that will make the difference? Of course, they need to teach the content. They need to make sure that kids understand. They need to, have systems of checking on results and proficiency and growth and like all of these things. Yes. And who do they want to be in that child's life as a teacher? It started with habits and it came down to becoming. And that link there is always supremely interesting to me, because there's a lot of information out there on how to establish good habits. There's, all these checklist things. Establish a trigger, right? The trigger is the thing that initiates the whole process. It's the thing that gets it started. If you're thinking about like a connect set or, a marble run or something like that, it's the thing that gets the ball rolling. You need to have this trigger so that you know when your habit is initiated. And your trigger can be a time of day, your trigger can be another action, like what comes before it. A trigger can be all sorts of things. And if you're interested in what triggers can be, there's tons of information on the internet about what triggers can be, but it's the thing that initiates the habit. And then, of course, you follow through with that habit to completion. How do you know when you're done? How do you know when it's the end of your habit and you start in on something else? And it is this cycle, right? But most of what I had learned and read when I was establishing my morning ritual was all about this, Nike, just do it, this willpower, this discipline, just, be stronger, Megan, like just do it, just follow through, just why, like if you can't make this habit stick, then it's on you. Like it's just because you don't have enough willpower. It's just because you're not strong enough. Just because you don't have the discipline. Okay. Some of that is true. Some of it was true or whatever. You do need a level of willpower and discipline in order to establish a habit. That's kind of part of the deal. However, if you're solely relying on willpower and discipline, you are leaving out a huge opportunity to make this easier. So, I want you to think about habits this way, okay? When you have a habit, this is like the best news about a habit, okay? When you have a habit, a good habit, one that you really love, it doesn't care about your day. It doesn't care about if you're tired. It doesn't care if you have a mile-long to-do list that you didn't get to. It doesn't care about what came before the trigger or what you're anticipating to come after the trigger. When that trigger hits, your established habit just cares that you follow through, just cares that you hit the trigger and now you just go. You just go with it. You're not stopping the flow. You're just following through, following that natural cycle that has been established, right? This looks like when your alarm goes off, you get up and you go work out. Or when you settle into bed, you reach for the book automatically without thinking about it. When you get out of the shower, you just grab the toothbrush. You're not even thinking about it. You're somewhere else in your head. And all of these things just happen because the trigger was hit and now the cycle has begun. Your habit doesn't care about any external factors. It just cares that when that trigger is hit, you don't do anything to impede the cycle going forward. So that is like the best news of a habit, right? Because it actually is less work to just follow the cycle than it would be to do something to get in the way of it. It's less work because the habit is just going to take over your actions. It's going to take over whatever is at hand. And your brain can be somewhere else. You can be thinking about something else. You can be not in the mood. You can be in whatever emotional state you are in, and the habit will just get the job done. Brilliant. Love that. The other side of that, the bad news, if you will, is that when you are establishing a habit, it also doesn't care. It doesn't care about your day. It doesn't care if you got promoted or fired. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if it was an awful day. It doesn't care if it was the best day. It does not care what came before this trigger and what you anticipate after. This habit, when you are establishing it, when you are in the active process of establishing this habit, it cares about commitment. And the way I saw this in my head, when you are establishing a habit, is this habit is like this petulant, this petulant assistant with arms crossed, sitting on the couch, just wondering, just saying, like, I wonder if she'll do it. I wonder if she'll do it when she's tired. I wonder if she'll do it when she's not motivated. I wonder if she'll do it when, the day didn't go well. I wonder if she'll do it when the day did go well. I wonder if she'll do it. And she sits on the couch, with her arms crossed, watching you. Once that trigger hits, she's asking, is she going to do it this time? She's wondering about your commitment. And you have to use a level of willpower and discipline in order to follow through on that commitment, in order to show that petulant habit on the couch that you are serious. And once you prove it to her and yourself that you're serious about it, you hit this critical moment where she no longer sits on the couch, and she gets up and she says, let me do that for you. And then forevermore, as long as you don't impede that habit, once that trigger is hit, she gets up and she does the work for you. And you can think about other things. You can be in whatever emotional state you are in. You can, whatever that is, that habit will do the work for you. But the establishment part, that's the tricky part, right? And sometimes it feels like it takes forever. Sometimes we don't know how long it's going to take. She's just going to sit on the couch and watch us forever, and we're just going to struggle with this forever. That is how I felt exactly when I was struggling to establish my morning routine. And I believed the habit theories of, like, it takes 28 days or it takes whatever, and it takes longer than that. I'm sorry to say. It totally does. And I go into the whole process and cycle of establishing a habit in my free, what do I call it? My free training, Results on Autopilot. I'll leave a link for that if you're interested. But if you don't know how long she's going to sit on the couch, it's really frustrating. And when all you're doing is relying on your own willpower, discipline, and good mood, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. So here's the big difference. Here's the big difference. Instead of focusing on willpower and discipline and these things that are limited and can vary from day to day, because those things do absolutely are affected by your day, by your mood, by your environment and the situations and the chaos and whatever. Those things fluctuate based on your experience. Instead of focusing on that, just trying harder, I focus on becoming that next version of you. When you focus on becoming, it's less about willpower and discipline. You will have to use it. It's kind of part of the game. But it does not need to be the focus. When you focus on becoming, you're simply doing what that next version of you would do. Now, here is really, honestly, listen to what I'm saying. This is the true difference. Willpower and discipline force you to do things that you wouldn't usually do, right? You're establishing a new habit. You don't usually do this. However, when you're focused on becoming that next version of you, you are doing things that that next version of you would normally do. I'm going to repeat that. When it's just willpower and discipline, you're doing things you don't usually do. You're the same person, right? Like, you're who you've been, doing things that you don't normally do. This is a new habit. I've never done this before. I've never done it with consistency or whatever. When you act from being the next version of you, you are simply doing the things that are normal for that person to do. Like, oh, I am stepping into being this version of Megan, and this version of Megan has normalized daily exercise, has normalized meditation, has normalized reading, has normalized journaling, has normalized whatever it is. That's just what she do. That's just what she does. Just as living her life, just as part of being her, right? She she gets up, she just does the thing. That's just part of it, right? Then you're making it normal. We're not being outside of our comfort zone. We're not trying to do something new and different. We are simply being that next version of us. And the habit is just something that they do as part of their life, as part of being normally them, right? That is the massive difference. And when you are focused in on that becoming, the habit doesn't feel like that big of a deal. You can walk by that petulant assistant on the couch with her arms crossed, and she's saying, I wonder if she'll follow through this time. And you're like, I don't care. This is my new way of life. So you can either get up and help, or I'll just do it myself. But eventually, she will do the work for you. Eventually, that assistant will get up and take over as a habit for you. Eventually, she'll do it. It's just going to happen. It's inevitable. You have to prove to her that you're serious. You have to prove to her that you have this commitment. But instead of doing it from this like push, I am going to just bulldog my way through this, you do this from a, well, this is just what I do now. This is just normal. And so it doesn't matter what mood I'm in. It doesn't matter what happened today. It doesn't matter anything. Like all of this external environmental situational noise is just that. Because this is just what I do. It doesn't make an impact on whether or not I get up in the morning and exercise. It doesn't make an impact on whether or not I brush my teeth. It doesn't make an impact on whether or not I do this thing or that thing or whatever the habit is. Because that's just part of how you do life now. So this tie between habits and becoming that flowed through so beautifully when I was having this conversation with my friend. Like I didn't direct this at all. Wasn't even thinking about it. But then when it became that, when we reached that point where we started talking about being that teacher, being that person, then I was like, oh, well, of course we ended up here. Why am I even surprised? Of course we started with tactile habits and ended up with becoming. Of course. Of course we did. Like, this is so my soapbox. Like, of course we ended up here. Here's the problem, though, is that how often do we approach things from, this is the kind of person I want to be? How many teachers walk into the classroom with their main focus of, I want to be this kind of teacher. I want to be the kind of teacher who kids cannot wait to come visit when they come back in the fall. I want to be the kind of teacher who kids freak out when they see me in the grocery store. I want to be the kind of teacher that when their kids ask them someday, who was your favorite teacher, they can remember my name. Who walks into the classroom like that? I don't know, but I would bet it's less than we would like. Because who walks into their office like that? Who walks into their, house like that? Who picks up their kids like that? Who does their life like that? Less than we would probably like, to be honest. Because unfortunately, we have these other competing habits that we just go through the motions. We're kind of checked out and we're just, I'm just picking up the kids. I'm just driving home. I'm just making dinner. I'm just, sending these emails. I'm just attending these meetings. I'm just blah, blah, blah. And we don't have in the front of our mind who it is we want to become. And of course, I'm on the journey too, right? Like right there with you. There are days when I'm just going through the motions, right? There are days when I'm just showing up, I'm just doing the thing, and I don't have that deep meaning backing me of who it is I want to become and who it is I am working on becoming actively as the main intention behind my actions for the day. But I will tell you that when I do set that intention at the beginning of the day, when I do wake up and go through my whole ritual and routine and whatever, and then I ask myself, okay, who am I becoming? And how can I do everything today as much as I can, as much as I remember? How can I do everything today as that version of me? How would she show up? How would that version of Megan show up? How would that version of Megan record podcasts? How would that version of Megan put the laundry away? How would that version of Megan pick up the kids? How would that version of Megan interact with the people in her life? I will tell you, those days are so much better because I'm not just going through the motions of my life. I'm showing up to each and everything with intention and on purpose. And with this like goal in mind of like, this is who I want to be. So that is how I'm going to show up. And the more you do that, the more you show up that way. That's just how it happens, right? The more you do it, the habit will take over eventually and it will just happen. I talk a lot about the habit as the bridge. There is an undeniable link here. To me, I see it so clearly between habits and becoming. If I was called to preach about anything in this world, this would be it. This would be it. Habits are supremely powerful. They are the things you do on repeat without really thinking about it. And if you're not really thinking about it, that means you're just doing it over and over again and not just once. So when you can take that power and direct it intentionally to become the person you want to become, that's personal development. That's developing yourself intentionally. That is growth. That is directed growth. That is growth on purpose. That's the whole thing. That's the whole point. Being the person is the whole point. We only want the kind of job that we want because we want to be that person. We only want the kind of house that we want because we want to be that person. We only want to live where we want to live because we want to be that kind of person. We only want the experience or the situation or the thing or the car or the whatever because we want to be the kind of person who has that thing, who lives that way, who has that experience, who created that situation. That's what it all comes down to. We want to be the kind of person who lives in ease or the kind of person who has a fulfilled job or a, satisfying home life or, isn't encumbered by nonsense and whatever. We want to be that kind of person who lives that way, who does that thing, who has that accomplishment or the thing or whatever. That's what the whole thing is about. So if your habits can help you become that person, if your habits can help you achieve the thing, have that fulfillment, satisfaction, experience, whatever it is, if they can get that for you, then it's going to feel a lot better because then you won't be pushing with all this willpower and discipline and this like force because that's not sustainable. In the long run, it's not sustainable. I've read so many books So many books. And the ones that stress me out are the ones by like those just do it willpower bros where I leave the book amped up and I'm like, yeah, preach. But then I burn out because I'm just like, I can't sustain that. However, if I choose to step into the version of me who shows up that way, then it's not about sustaining anything. It's about being the person. That takes practice. Not saying none of this is work. Of course, it's all work. It's all work. And I'm not saying that none of it takes willpower, because when you're establishing that habit, you do have to use willpower. But knowing that you are becoming a person and not just establishing a habit makes all of the difference. I tell you what. When it was just about the habit, I could not freaking do it. I couldn't do it for the life of me. I knew for 100% fact, I knew deep down in the bones of my body, depths of my soul, I knew if I could establish this morning ritual, it will change my life. I couldn't do it. 10 years, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I knew it would change my life and I could not do it until I linked it with becoming. When I linked it with becoming, it was done. It was done. It still took the time. I still had to go through all the phases of establishing the habit. I still had to go through that time. I still had to use some willpower. I still had to use discipline, but the force was gone. The doing it just for doing its sake was gone. I was no longer establishing a habit just because I wanted this habit. I was becoming a person, a different person, a different version of me. That made all the difference. So that's what I have for you today. I totally love you. I totally believe in you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for joining me while I preach from my basement. I hope you have the best day. Bye for now.